All right. What's up, everybody? Welcome back for another awesome episode of the Fit 40 podcast. We have a Christmas special for you today. This is going to be a special two-parter on exactly what you need to do to make 2025 your best year yet. So I had to bring in an expert who is an absolute pro in helping fathers 40 plus lose fat, build muscle so they can be lean, strong, confident, and healthy for their family and future. So me and Ben together are going to do a 40 plus special. I mean, I've got my expertise, as you guys know. Ben has worked with professional teams like the Golden State Warriors, Arizona Diamondbacks, Cardinals. He's been featured in magazines, Fox News. Like, this is going to be an action packed episode with tons of really good tips. So I can't wait. Ben, welcome to the show.
Dude, thank you for having me. I'm psyched to be here and have a great conversation.
Absolutely. So, the way that we had this planned out, guys, is we're going to start off with exercise. This is going to be our part one. And then we're going to go into the nutrition and mindset in part two. So, if you want to get the whole thing, be sure to take a second and follow Ben's podcast down below in the show notes before we get started so you don't forget. But don't worry, I'll remind you at the end. So, let's kick it off. Ben, so if somebody is listening right now and they're like, all right, this is my year. I really want to
Mm,
start getting in shape, taking my health seriously. What would be your favorite starting point?
that's a great question. And I think this is the most important place for someone to start is not based on what do I do next, but what have I done before and what am I currently doing? And so the way that we typically look at things is creating more awareness, right? We don't know how we can move forward if we're not fully aware of what we've been doing in the past. And that means how do I take ownership and create awareness around, hey, what am I currently eating? What have I tried in the past in terms of diet methodology, in terms of exercise methodology? What's quote unquote worked for me before, what hasn't worked, what is it that I'm still struggling with? And by virtue of us getting a really clear picture of like where we've been and then deciding, okay, here's where I want to go, and kind of extrapolating then, all right, here's all of the things I've tried, and being honest with ourselves around, hey, is it reasonable to assume that most of the things, probably all of the things that we've tried in the past, haven't actually worked for us? In other words, you doing keto again, you doing carnivore again, you doing whole 30, you doing 75 hard, you going and committing to 2 a day workouts, right? Despite the fact that those may have worked for a short period of time, can we just agree that you trying to reinforce those again and ending up gaining the weight back is probably not the most logical solution moving forward? And so let's take stock in what we're currently doing. And then as coaches, we can kind of say, all right, here's what's a logical next step in terms of how do we move the needle in the most effective and realistic way? Because by the way, those of you who are listening to this, like you're likely busy, you've got a stressful lifestyle, you've got a lot of responsibilities. And so we need to figure out a way for it to be sustainable and realistic, which is the most important component of this whole process if we're going to make long-term change.
Yeah, I'm so glad you started there because I think now, especially being at the tail end of December, if anybody has ran their plan during December and fell off the wagon, it's probably a good tell that that's
Mm,
not the right plan for you. Because if it doesn't work when you're busy, it doesn't work, assuming that you want to actually change your
yeah.
lifestyle. Like you don't want to just keep losing weight, gaining it all back over and over and over again.
Well, it's interesting because what I've found is, so many people want to put off, quote unquote, getting started until the right time. And I don't know if it's cliche at this point or it's just because you and I talk about it probably all of the time. Like, okay, there is no right time to get started, but let's just acknowledge, like I mentioned earlier, Brian, is we all have crazy, chaotic, hectic lives all of the time. And in theory, we want to rationalize, okay, well, once I get through the week or once, it's Christmas break, then I'll have time, or once the new year hits, then I'll have time to really be able to focus on myself and prioritize myself. And it never works out that way. And so instead, why don't we just acknowledge that things are always going to feel busy? They're always going to feel somewhat overwhelming. And it's up to us to really put ourselves in the best possible position, which means get started right away, especially if we're agreeing that this process is, in fact, that it is a learning process of behavioral change that is going to take time and energy and effort and varying amounts of intensity and learning and growth and challenge and failure. And that's the evolution of someone who literally changes their identity and becomes the type of person who is lean, healthy, fit, strong, and confident.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things, as you were saying that, I'm like, okay, that kind of sounds like this whole concept of balance and how it's really not like you're not going to be able to balance your workouts and balance your nutrition along with your lifestyle. Instead, it helps to think of it more like harmonizing. So it's
Right.
like these things are all going to happen. You just got to figure out how to harmonize your workouts and your nutrition around your lifestyle. So it's not going to feel easy. It's not going to be,
Mm.
oh, the sky's part and everything is clear and you can just easily manage it. Like that's never ever going to happen. So I think getting out of that like fairy tale ideal is like step one for most people, where it's like this magical time is never
Yeah.
ever going to happen.
I love that term harmonizing because I think that gives kind of people a good mantra to consider. And given that we're on the topic of exercise, we can kind of dive into that. But what I was gonna say about, this time of year, here we are in early December, recording this, and like I said, so many people want to put off kind of quote unquote getting started. Well, if we can agree that it's simply just about starting to take more concerted action towards the goal that you want, specifically from an exercise standpoint, it's like, well, there is literally no better time than now to start to improve your behaviors, which means, okay, well, one of the first steps is like determining, well, what does that look like for me? Is it, committing to a gym membership? Or maybe I have a gym membership and I'm not going like the vast majority of people who do have gym memberships, in which case, how many days a week can I start to go? And do I have a plan of action when I go? And, if I have a plan, is it something that's realistic for me to commit to, again, consistently given all of the other variables that are at play? But what I would implore people is just that, to just simply get started with the understanding that it's like just being honest with yourself around what you can commit to and not saying, well, if I don't go
Yes.
4 days a week, right, then why even bother going? No, no, no. Like, or if I can't go for an hour, I'm not even going to bother going. You can go for 5 or 10 minutes or 15 minutes consistently, and that is going to be that much better than nothing.
Yeah. And I think this is where we could steal one of the like really good lessons. I'm assuming like every coach has read Atomic Habits, right?
Sure. Yeah,
There
of
was that
course.
anecdote in there about the guy who got in incredible shape, lost like 100 pounds, and he just started with going to the gym and walking on the treadmill.
Right.
And if he wasn't feeling it, he had full autonomy to be like, screw this,
Mhm.
I'm out. But he went there first. So I think that's where a lot of people should start right now, being that it's like Christmas week when this is coming out. It's like, yeah, you got a lot going on, but can you do a 5 minute walk? Can you
Right.
show up for yourself and build that muscle? Because come January 1st, you want to crank it up. You got to start with the foundation first. So start with showing up.
Yeah, and I think it's people giving themselves permission to learn to live in the gray. And this is kind of that kind of harmonizing mantra that you were mentioning, is because I think so many people listening, and certainly a lot of the clients that I work with, I think probably a lot of the hard charging women that you work with are the kind of uh, type A personality, or they might classify themselves as such to the degree that they want to be able to do it all. And that's what they've tried in the past. And again, can we acknowledge that what you've tried before actually hasn't worked for you? If we're having this conversation and you're still stuck, right, in the same patterns and routines that you've done before, and well, it may have worked for you in business, it's certainly not going to work for you in health and fitness and long-term behavior change. And so that's where simply saying, and by the way, prioritizing by virtue of scheduling it in so that it's something that we're clear and have set intentions around, I think is a really big component of like, you show me your calendar, I'll show you your priorities. So get that sucker on your calendar, even if it's a 10-minute walk. Great. Get it on your calendar. When are you going to the gym? How long are you going to the gym? Get it on your calendar and then execute, right? And build the confidence around being the type of person who is going to follow through with the commitments that you made to yourself, just like you would to someone you care about. You wouldn't stand up a friend whom you had an appointment with, hopefully. Yet we stand up ourselves all of the time in those commitments.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy how it's so much easier to like hold yourself accountable to somebody else rather than yourself. Because I think that's one of the big benefits of having a coach. If you don't have the luxury of having a really good exercise buddy, because a lot of people are struggling with their fitness, with their nutrition, and it's easy for them to fall off. Now, the question is, are you going to fall off with them? Like, are you guys
Mhm.
attached at the same rope climbing the mountain? They fall off and you fall with them? Or do you have the tools to survive yourself and do the thing regardless?
Yeah,
And I think that's where a lot of people's focus needs to be is how do I not fall off? How do I just keep going? So
yeah.
let's say somebody is in this mindset and they're like, okay, I'm locked in, like, no more bullshit. I'm not going to keep doing the things I did in the past. I want to do this right. Like, and they've started their walking, they've started getting in the
Mhm.
routine. Now it's time to start working out, whether it's at home, whether it's at the gym. What are some of your favorite movements, your favorite workout styles to get people going and get them really good results?
Yeah, great question. And I'm sure you've talked about this plenty on your show, but like obviously we can agree that strength training is going to be one of the biggest drivers of body composition change, of long-term health, of quality of life. Especially if we're talking over 40. We have the propensity to lose muscle mass as we age, especially if we're sedentary, especially if we've been dieting aggressively. So everything that we can possibly do to support, maintain, grow, and improve the quality and quantity of lean muscle tissue to a degree is going to be advantageous. And that's where strength training comes into play. And, the great thing about strength training is there's so many different ways where we can apply strength training methodology to the individual, right? And so I recall, very clearly, and I'm sure you do as well, when COVID hit and everything started to shut down, we had to get really, really creative. And this is where, perhaps in the past um, I would have poo-pooed like training at home or just using dumbbells at home or just using TRX straps. And what I realized very quickly was like we can actually create quite a lot of resistance, quite a lot of stimulus, and therefore quite a lot of adaptation to those variables, which is exactly what strength training is, which is exactly what contributes to muscle protein synthesis, which is exactly what drives motor unit recruitment and strength, which is exactly what drives muscle hypertrophy of increasing the size of the muscle fibers. Um, and so it's just a matter of like, where can we start to create resistance? And if you're someone who is perhaps by virtue of schedule, perhaps by virtue of comfort level, um, you're not someone who's like committed right away or excited to get to the gym, totally understandable. Like I said, maybe it's a set of dumbbells at home. Maybe it's a TRX strap. Maybe it's a combination of the two. Maybe we can start to build that in-home training arsenal, in which case we can start to leverage, 2, 3, 4 days of structured strength training per week. And I would simply just start with what it is you can realistically commit to. Now, I will say 2 days is certainly a minimum if we're actually going to get the physiological benefits. Um, However, let's be clear in terms of like if you're completely unconditioned and untrained, we don't have to do a whole lot, which is what's so cool. And so you don't have to go kill yourself, do these ridiculous workouts that you find online, but it simply could be some body weight exercises, some squats, some push-ups, if we have the TRX, some inverted rows, perhaps some split squats or some form of unilateral exercise. Um, and when we talk about like the big bang exercises, I mean, in a nutshell, we want to do what? We want to squat, we want to hinge, so bend at the hips, we want to push, we want to pull, we want to lunge. Um, what am I forgetting? Squat, hinge, push, pull, lunge, maybe some rotation,
Carry?
carry. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Um, are all part of the equation, and there's just hundreds of exercises that we can plug in to accommodate those different variables. So, like I said, Can we get in a couple days of strength training? It doesn't have to be a ton of volume, but what matters most is, again, you can commit to it consistently and that we can progressively increase the volume and intensity over time. And so it might be starting with one set of all of these different exercises and doing that for a couple weeks, then going to two sets. It could be increasing the number of reps that we're doing. It can be increasing the weight that we're using. This goes the same for, going to the gym, using equipment in the gym. And that's legitimately the fundamentals of strength training and what contributes to putting on lean muscle tissue, getting stronger. Of course, nutrition plays a big role in actually building lean muscle mass as well. But just from a strength training standpoint, those are the fundamentals.
I was going to say, don't get ahead of yourself. We still got
Yeah,
part two with the nutrition,
that's
but
that's right. We'll get into
and
that.
and to add on to this, I think another thing that's important for people to understand too is the rhythm of the exercise. A lot of people don't understand what a true strength training workout feels like. Because I
Mm,
was watching Alex Hormozy and Chris Williamson doing their workout and just shooting the shit, which I mean, and also Chris Bumstead too. Guy just won the Olympia for men's physique, and it's a very similar way of training that people don't normally do in the gym, where it's like you push it hard, you try and get one more rep, you try and get 5 more pounds, and then you rest for like a minute or two.
hmm.
You don't just continually go, 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 kill yourself and feel like the stereotypical like CrossFit class where you feel like you're going to throw up at the
That's
end.
right.
Like you don't want to do that unless you are a fan of feeling that way. But if you're not like a sane person and you don't want to be dead the rest of the day, do an exercise or two and then like for like say 5 to 10 reps and then chill for a minute or two. And if you are that type A personality, like I know we both work with, one of my favorite things to do with that type of person that needs something to do the whole time is do a low fatiguing thing in between your work, in between your
Yeah,
exercises. So
like
if you're going to
stretching.
do, yeah, like stretching. So it's like if you're going to do a pushing exercise like a bench press and then a lower body exercise like a squat or something, do that, and then stretch for like
Hmm.
30 seconds or 45 seconds per side. So you get minute and a half of rest, and then you do it again. And when you do that, not only do you get more bang for your buck, you get better results, you also feel really good when you leave. So you get into the habit of feeling
Yeah.
better when you leave than when you walked in.
I think that's such a good tip. And there's two things that I thought about because I incorporate the same thing with clientele as well as myself. But I find in my experience is that a lot of women feel like they have to go, go, go and kind of always be like heart rate, high heart rate and huffy and puffy for it to be a kind of quote unquote valuable workout. That's where throwing in some of the stretches can be really helpful to just get them to slow down and take the appropriate rest. And then for men, my experience is that men don't need an excuse to take longer rest periods, but they
I
do
was
need
gonna
an
ask, is it like a little more kick in the ass? Like, come on, time for the next set.
yeah, that and but they also men typically need a lot more of the stretching, right?
Yes,
So
that's true.
it's a great opportunity to infuse the stretching, make the, add purpose to the rest periods, like you said, um, and do give them something to do that they probably wouldn't be normally do. And I say that speaking of myself because if I'm going to skip anything, it will absolutely be the kind of stretching that I know I need. And so infusing that through the workout works really well. Now, really briefly, I think it's important to just touch on how we kind of need to prioritize, um, the kind of like the order of priorities in terms of what's going to move the needle the most, right? In terms of like strength and nutrition and behavior change through this transition, through your kind of goal setting process and understanding. I think a lot of people have the propensity to kind of want to hit the gym as being the number one priority. And what we know very clearly is strength training is beautiful, exercise is wonderful. We need it, we want it. Um, and it's incredibly beneficial for the process, but it's not the direct driver of body composition change. So if you think going to the gym and hoofing it on the treadmill or starting to run or hitting the, strength training is going to be what's going to actually move the needle on the scale, well, then you're guided in terms of it. It really is, again, the nutrition, and I know we're going to get into that, but I just wanted to frame it appropriately to help people understand. And I'm sure you talk about it all the time, Brian, but they're both incredibly important. Um, and so, we'll talk about that more.
Yeah, and I think also it, like you were just saying, it comes down to understanding what you're doing it for. We're getting all these benefits, not necessarily fat loss if the nutrition doesn't match, but you're still going to be metabolically more healthy because if you build more
Yes,
muscle, things like insulin sensitivity get better. You have better results when it comes to joint pain and things like that. So you could get yourself out of pain and improve your health and all that good stuff. And then one of the most underrated aspects of exercise is the fact that it reinforces your fit identity. Like
mm,
fit people go to the gym, fit people eat better quality food. Fit people prioritize their own health so that they can show up as best as they possibly can. So it's more just encapsulating this persona of this is this new version of me.
100%, dude. I love the way you framed that. And, we know very clearly that you're a product of the people that you surround yourself with. And so the more we can root into the identity of like, a social support system and actually hanging out with people that are fit-minded individuals that eat healthy foods, that choose to do healthy behaviors, that choose to move their body frequently, right? And the less that we have to rely on discipline and self-control, like the better off that we're going to be. And that's the biggest differentiator is the last thing we want as we roll into the new year here is to simply, say, well, what's the program that I'm going to white knuckle for the next 90 days to lose as much weight as possible? Like that's not what it's about, right? It's
Yeah,
it's about building that fit identity. And
yeah,
and most importantly is like, listen, we have the science around all of this stuff. We're talking about the science of strength training and the science of nutrition and the psychology of behavior change and obviously that's all incredibly important. But at the end of the day, you need to find enjoyment in being physically active. Right. And so if it's like, hey, you're someone who loves going to spin classes, well, like we're not going to poo-poo that. It's like, dude, great, go do spin classes, go do high intensity interval training, go do F45 or um, you know, Orange Theory or whatever. It's like because you're being physically active is that much better. And then as you progress, we can kind of look at, okay, what's working well, what's not, where do we need to consider making some changes around nutrition training, so I think it's really easy for people to get discouraged because they're looking for the kind of the perfect path up the mountain, proverbial mountain, so to speak, and there isn't one. It's just the one that works best for you, and you've got to be willing and able to explore what that looks like and what feels best for you at the time. And maybe it is trying, you know, these exercise programs. Maybe it is maybe it's just doing Pilates and yoga to get more comfortable before you jump into strength training, whatever it is, as long as you're kind of taking steps towards, all of those things.
absolutely. And as you were saying that, I caught something and I'm like, yeah, he's so right. And that is like fit people don't rely on willpower. Fit people just make it extremely easy to make the right decisions more often than not. And I think that's where a lot of people, like this will probably be where we cap this off when it comes to the mindset around exercise
Mm,
is like stop relying on willpower and making yourself do everything. Like create an environment that is suitable for your goals and makes it easy to do the things you know you need to do because that's what the truly successful people do. Yeah, they'll put on the camera and they'll start it rolling and they're going to be like I wake up at 4 a.m. every single
mhm.
morning and I'm the most hardcore person ever, but it's like at the end of the day they enjoy that as much as they say that they don't, they
Yeah.
do. So make
Yeah.
it enjoyable and make it easy.
Yeah. I can't express that enough and just know like I don't know about you, Brian, but I mean, this is stuff that I goes through my mind every single day. I'm laying in bed and I generally get up really early, but there's this time of year so much more frequently. It's like, I think I'm going to stay in bed a little bit longer. Then I'm like, oh, you're a pussy for staying in bed. And I'm like, kind of, toggling back and forth with this go, go, go mindset. But I think it's important for people to understand is like, even as quote unquote fit pros, like this is the stuff that we deal with daily. I have you have kids, right?
I do not
No
yet.
kids. Not yet. It's for you. I have
Still
three.
got to get married. There's a couple of checklist
Okay,
items
couple.
before
Okay,
that.
yes. Well, I have three kids. My oldest, she turned 15 today, but
Oh,
these are part of
congrats.
like, yeah, thanks. I'm feeling extra old. So I'm 45, but this is where it's like you have to embrace life. And this isn't me being preachy, but it's acknowledging I'm human, I'm a dad, I'm a husband, I'm a father, right? And we're going to go out to dinner and there's going to be cake and there's going to be sweets around the house. And she just had a birthday party and there was pizza and all this crap food. And it's like, you know, we're not benign to that stuff. And so you've got to figure out the dynamics that work for you and give yourself permission to kind of just tune out all of the things that you think you should be doing and just acknowledge, okay, what's working for me, what's not, how can I make the best choices possible under the circumstances.
I love that because there's a million things you should, could, and would do. All that matters is what needs to get done and what you can do.
And how you can be consistent with it. That's right.
Exactly, exactly. And that'll be the cap we'll put on it is consistency. Whatever you can do over and over and over again,
Mm,
keep doing that. Now, that's it for the exercise portion, and we're probably going to dive in a little bit more and sprinkle it into the next
mm,
part. But for anybody who wants to catch part two so that they can get the best results they possibly can by nailing their nutrition and getting all the extra mindset tips that we're going to be talking about, go ahead in the description, in the show notes, wherever you're watching or listening, click on Ben's podcast and go ahead and catch part two. And just in case they are gonna click on and check it out later, is there anywhere else that they can catch you? And what's also the name of your podcast so they know what to
yeah.
look for?
Yeah. So the podcast is called the Smart Nutrition Made Simple Show. And we are on social at Body Systems Coaching, and Body Systems is the name of my business, and we're at bodysystems.com.
Love it. Love it. And like I said, those will all be in the show notes, guys. So don't feel the need to search. Go click away. Go ahead and catch part two. But before you do, if you heard anything during this podcast episode that really resonated and you have that one person in your life that you're like, damn, they really need to hear this, go and send it their way and then go check out part two. All right. So I'll see you guys over on part two. But until then, go kick some ass. I'll see you later.